Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. Here's your host, Brien Hanley.
Hey, everybody, what's going on? This is your man, Big B, Brien Hanley, and welcome to the Big 12 Insiders. I'm here with Tim Fitzgerald. We are doing the power rankings today in the Big 12. It seems every single week something happens, Fitz, that just turns these power rankings upside down. We got some changes today. Don't get me wrong. We've always had changes every week, but there's even more changes today. People moving up and down and all over the place. This conference is just crazy.
It is. And when you compare the two rankings, when we get to the end, the top of the conference is becoming pretty clear. The bottom of the conference, not even the bottom 2/3 of the conference are utter chaos. It is a show down there. Nothing matches except maybe one between the publishers and you. This is going to be entertaining because the bottom of this conference is just a jungled mess. It's unbelievable how sloppy it is down there.
Yeah, it is. Just for context, people, if you haven't seen the show before, we compare my power rankings to what the publishers of 24/7 that cover each individual team within the conference. They do their rankings of the Big 12. I do mine, and so we compared the two. So we'll get into that now. Again, before we do, as always, remember to like, follow, subscribe, continue to leave those comments, and hit that notification bell to let everybody know exactly when Big 12 Insiders content is coming out. So,
hey, Big B, before we get started, I've been accused in the past of not asking hard questions, so I'm going to give a hard question to you, my friend.
Okay.
Are you in the pocket of Big Cole? Because you left out West Virginia, Kansas State yesterday. And I know West Virginia and their Cole backing would love if you forgot about that game. I think you took a big bribe from Big Cole.
I mean, first of all, I'll say this. I'm not above taking a bribe. I am not above that at all. I can be bought. So just for any of you fans out there, if you think that I'm not giving your team the right type of coverage, I am 100% for sale. I'll tell you that right now. I can be bought. So maybe they did. I don't know. But I'm trying to make up for it. I got technically a K-State shirt on today. So, or at least a K-State color shirt. So it is what it is.
Okay.
Let's get into this. Number 16. Look, I didn't want to do it, but you got to do it. I got Houston at the bottom. Look, they had a bye week coming off of that upset victory on the road against TCU. But unfortunately for Houston, it's like one step forward, 5 steps back. I mean, it looked bad. Kansas, don't get me wrong, Kansas is very talented. They may be putting some stuff together. It was a good game by them. But it looked horrible. 4 interceptions. They just can't figure out the quarterback at Houston right now. It's unfortunate, but I got to have Houston at 16.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't just lose to Kansas. They were pretty much handled.
Yeah.
And back to the bottom with you, Cougars. You got a bright future, but every time we think the future is coming, you prove us wrong. So
absolutely. At number 15, I have Utah. There's going to be Utah fans that come for me, but maybe not. Utah fans are pretty knowledgeable. I think they could admit that they are not a very good football team right now. And they're not. They're just not. And I got them at 15 in this conference. That was bad on Saturday. That was terrible. You can no longer run the football, or at least you couldn't run it on Saturday against a TCU team that had been giving up rushing yards by the trillions. And Utah couldn't run it. Very, very disappointing for Utah right now, Fitz.
These problems go well beyond the loss of a veteran quarterback and the replacement with a young quarterback. They just dumped their offensive coordinator, Andy Ludwig, who I met during his about 3-week stint at Kansas State under Bill Snyder before going back to Utah. I think he found out what it took to win at Kansas State and said, I'm going back. I'm not going to work here. I think he got pushed under the bus a little bit, but look, these problems are pretty deep right now for the Utes. And and it's kind of hard to watch in some ways. But they are what they are. They're just not a very good football team right now.
Nope, they're just not. Like you said, it's unfortunate, but truth is truth. At number 14, I got Arizona. I have no idea what has happened to Arizona.
No.
Weird thing, Fitz. I'm going to throw this out there. Our man Jason Shear sent us a picture and sent out a picture of the head coach out kowtowing to boosters an hour before the football game. I never seen it. You won't even see that from a high school football coach, Fitz. What is going on? That made no sense. And I'll tell you what, Arizona played like it too, because they played lousy, not to mention Colorado's good. I don't want to take anything from them, but I have no idea what's going on there. It's coming apart at Arizona.
That was just bizarre.
Yeah.
You're out with boosters an hour before kickoff, and you want your kids to be locked in?
Yeah.
I don't understand at all. And this is so far from my point of reference that if I get a text from a buddy who's at the bottom of the press box and wants to say hi an hour before kickoff, I'm not doing it. I'm in work mode. I'm not going down when I'm in work mode, and he should be in work mode too. Yeah. Truly bizarre, a troubling sign at Arizona. I think in my personal rankings, I turned in to the Big 12 publishers that McLean does, that I had Arizona higher, but I certainly have no argument against them being here. What a weird turn of events to have Arizona and Utah this bad.
Yep. Yeah. I don't know. The thing about it is at Arizona is the expectations were so high.
Yeah.
And now it's coming apart. You talk about not being able to deal with adversity. I mean, they were up and down, and now they are just down and they don't know how to get out of it. It's unfortunate. Number 13, I got Oklahoma State. Now, publishers probably have them lower. We'll find out here in a minute. But the way that they came back and how they fought against BYU is why I have them here. Because had they just gotten blown out at BYU, which I think a lot of us thought was going to happen, they would maybe at the bottom of this conference. But because, again, I thought the game was going to be closer. And I mentioned that. I said, look, Mike Gundy, after a bye, they tend to figure some things out. And they did. It's not like Oklahoma State doesn't have talent. They just couldn't finish the game against BYU. It's a testament to how good BYU is, number one. But also it's just Oklahoma State just not knowing how to win right now, some of these close games within the conference. But I got them at 13 anyway, Fitz. I just thought they fought a good fight on Friday night.
I agree. Let me recap the game for Oklahoma State fans. Our backup quarterback's going to lead us to victory. Oh, he got injured. And Alan Bowman's like, I'm back. Look, they ran Alan Bowman. They threw the ball to Alan Bowman. They let Alan Bowman pass, and he was much more effective.
Yeah.
Why haven't they been doing that with him through his struggles? It's like we don't change the plan. We just make him struggle. They actually designed, when he came back in the game, 2 of their first 3 plays were designed runs for Alan Bowman. Have they run 2 design plays for Alan Bowman to run the ball all season? And they worked.
Yeah.
So a lot of this is on the coaches. We tend to blame the kids, but they just seem to be out of touch with what they need to do to kind of loosen things up.
Yep, absolutely. Like I said, I this is why I have them here. I have no qualms. I know a lot of people probably have them lower, but I'm going to give you credit if you fight. And Oklahoma fought. At number 12, I've got Kansas. Look, Kansas I've been tooting the Kansas horn all season, and finally I was right. It took 6 games, but finally I was right about them finally showing up and winning a game. It looks like they're better, or got better, I should say, kind of the get right game against Houston. They didn't turn it over on offense. Jalen Daniels looked a hell of a lot better. Devin Neal still running for 100 yards each week. But the one thing that hadn't been there was their defense. Their defense showed up. Now, I don't know if it's their defense or because Houston's so bad on offense. I think it's probably the latter. But give Kansas credit. You get 4 interceptions. One guy, Kobe Bryant, had 3 of them by himself. You're doing something. So, but I got Kansas. I mean, it's still just one game. Don't get me wrong. But I moved Kansas out of the cellar, and I got them at 12.
Yeah. They look better. Was it Houston? Was it their off week and regrouping? They looked better. And that's a positive sign going into the rivalry this Saturday with Kansas State, Manhattan. And we'll see if it's truly going on. They've got a really tough schedule going down the stretch. And beating K-State is almost essential if they want to recover and get to a bowl game. I don't know if they're capable of that. They certainly have the talent. Are they gathered up as a team well enough and focused and polished off enough to finish the game against a K-State team that's playing pretty well? We'll find out on Saturday, but Kansas is improving. We knew Lance Leipold would get them going at some point. He used that off week to the best he could, and they got a nice win.
Absolutely. Go at number 11, I've got UCF. And again, publishers or people in general may have UCF a little lower. Look, I like the way they fought, but UCF, I mean, their defense is just terrible. And they can't throw the football. They did run it all over Iowa State. I mean, they ran for 54 yards against Iowa State, just up and down the field, but they can't throw it. They made a quarterback change. They still can't throw the football. One of the things is coaching. You got to lead, slow it down a little bit, Gus Malzahn. You don't have to go at warp speed when you have the lead. Try to drain a little bit of clock. And had you done that, there may not have been enough time for Iowa State to come back and beat you. I'm just going to say that. And then the passes that you throw, they're all bombs. I'm like, have you heard of a quick slant? Maybe a hitch route or a stop route, something of that nature. But nope, it's not what they're doing. And they got beat. I give them credit. Like I said, I've got them here because they fought. And you know me, I'm going to give you credit when you fight, but we got to see more because this is a sinking ship right now because they can't win football games. If people have them lower, I won't argue with you, but I got them at 11.
They're hard to watch because they've got elements of a good team and elements of an awful team.
Yes.
All mixed together. And you see one side of the story and you're like, ooh, this team's pretty good. Then you look at things they're doing and go, oh, what's going on? I think I'm going to be blunt here. I think Gus Malzahn's done the worst coaching job in this conference this year. I think he's taken a team that should be in the upper part of this conference, and they're in the lower. As you said, you might have them higher than a lot of people do.
Yeah.
They
missed on the quarterback, Fitz. They went to the transfer portal and they missed. I mean, that matters.
We said something about KJ Jefferson. I think it was on our Friday show we do together. And people said, well, we didn't hear that before the season. Folks, go back and look at our preseason quarterback rankings. Yeah. Go back and look at that show. Dig that one up. It's so old, it might be at Go Powercat. I don't know. But it's we did not think highly of KJ Jefferson, and I am eager to say we were right.
But he just like I said, I didn't think he was great at Arkansas. There's a reason he left Arkansas, or Arkansas didn't try to retain him. You're bringing in Bobby Petrino, who's a quarterback wizard. You bring him in to be the offensive coordinator, and you leave. That to me, that was the first sign that, okay, this guy's not that great. And it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. They missed. Hopefully they've got Ja'Cory Brown. Maybe they can help him get some better passing numbers by just calling some different routes, some better routes for him. Everything, again, doesn't have to be a bomb. So let's look at the
I feel like KJ Jefferson, when Bobby Petrino showed up at Arkansas, he said, hey, KJ, I want you to go grab some McDonald's. And he left the building and he locked the door.
Yeah.
He's like, you're not coming back. Dude,
yeah.
You ate your job.
You're exactly right. That sounds about what happened, because I'm not saying he was a bad quarterback at Arkansas, but Bobby Petrino is a quarterback guru. He just, everywhere that he has been, the quarterbacks are good. And if you left, you could say, oh, it was NIL. Nobody, and I'm going to say this firmly, maybe 2 or 3 people have more NIL money than what Arkansas can put on the table. Right. I can tell you that right now. People that don't know, the Walmarts put money behind Arkansas, period. That should be the end of the story right there.
Yep.
So, but let's take a look at the first half here. One team I agreed on, or that the publishers agreed on. Everything else is convoluted. Oklahoma State, Yeah, I get it. Kansas, UCF. Like I said, I wasn't going to argue if you had UCF lower. Utah at 12, I think, is insane.
Haven't proved
What
that.
have you seen? What did you just see from Utah that says they're better than these other teams,
Yeah.
especially Arizona, who beat you? But I guess they have Arizona ahead of them.
Yep.
But UCF, Kansas, Oklahoma, I don't know. I don't see it. You have to be punished, in my opinion, for what you're putting out there. Utah's just not a good football team right now. They're just not.
One final thought on Bobby Petrino. I trust him with quarterbacks. Just don't get on his motorcycle. Don't do that.
Yeah, I remember that whole story when all of that came out. Everybody tried to say that it was a motorcycle wreck, that what hurt his neck and his face. And I'm like, really? So he had all these marks and scrapes and hurt his neck, but the girl had nothing. How about we just tell the truth is that Bobby Petrino ran into the boyfriend, or at the time, the fiance, and Bobby Petrino got his butt whipped. How about we just talk about that and just let the story play out? But hey, who knows? It's a different time for different topic for a different day, Fitz. Different topic for a different day. Let's move on here. At number 10, I got TCU. Look, good win on the road. I didn't see this one coming at all. I thought that TCU was about ready to throw in the towel, after the way that they looked at home against Houston, but they didn't. They didn't throw in the towel. Now, again, Utah's in a bad way right now, but so was TCU. And TCU went on the road and won. And it's not like TCU went out and threw the ball for 350 yards or anything. They just won a good football game on a road in a hostile environment. Got to give them credit. I got them at 10, Fitz.
Yeah, that football game was hard to watch. It's kind of
Yes.
like a naked picture of me. Nobody wants to see that. And it was painful. It had to be really painful for a proud Utah fan base to watch what's happening to their program, both offensively and just overall. I mean, that's a game you should absolutely win with a converted receiver at quarterback, and they couldn't do it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. But give them credit. They went on the road. They won. They're at 10. They're still not out of it. I mean, this conference is insane that they're still technically not out of this thing. So, but I got them at 10 this week.
Yeah.
At number 9, I have Baylor. And I'll be honest, Fitz. I'll be honest. I wanted to put Baylor ahead of Texas Tech. I just couldn't do it. And I know that maybe it was just one football game, but I can't unsee what I saw. Baylor destroyed Tech. And we've mentioned it several times, and we're going to keep on mentioning it, Fitz, because it is true. Baylor has not quit.
No.
They lost that first game against Utah. Utah was a different football team at the time, and so was Baylor, quite honestly. And then they gave one away at Colorado. And you're thinking, uh-oh. And then the next week, they're down 21-0 in the first quarter, and you're thinking, yeah, it's over. But they didn't quit in that game and had the ball with a chance to win against BYU. And then they lost the next week, Iowa State. But even in that game, Fitz, they were in it 2.5 quarters. They had the lead.
Yep.
They had the lead. And they just haven't quit. They just have not quit. Give them credit. Give those kids credit. Give Dave Aranda credit. You look at the remaining schedule that Baylor has, there's a real possibility that they get to 6 wins. That if you said this 3 weeks ago, you're thinking there is no chance.
No doubt.
There's no chance to win 2 more games, much less get to 6 wins. They got a shot. And I don't know. I've heard Baylor fans, they don't want Dave Aranda around. But if they get to a bowl game, I think it's tough to get rid of them, Fitz. I don't know. But we'll see. The one thing that's in his favor, they're fighting. They're just fighting.
They are. They looked much better. They really did.
They do. At number 8, West Virginia. I could have put West Virginia lower. I probably should have put them lower, but I didn't. Because you look at the teams that West Virginia has lost to. I mean, Lord have mercy. I mean, what do they have? 1 loss combined?
Yep.
I mean, it's tough. Having said that, they didn't look good. If Garrett Green's going to be out for any amount of time, that's troubling. for West Virginia. Look, the backup came in, and I think he's capable. You give him a week of practice. Don't get me wrong. That's fine, but he's not Garrett Green. But the problem with Garrett Green, he's not a good thrower of the football. And I was saying it all week before the Kansas State game, is that just play defense. He'll throw you a couple of them, and he did. Took one back for pick six. It is what it is. If you stop them from running, which is what Kansas State did, Garrett Green had a ton of yards on his own, but it was more scrambling type of runs. When you put the clamps to them and you say, go throw it and go beat us, they just weren't able to do that. Again, a lot of weird stuff came out of West Virginia the previous week from the head coach. I got a feeling this one might be going in the wrong direction here, Fitz.
Yeah, you're right. Garrett Green's an absolute warrior. He played really poorly. He had 2 picks, including a pick 6 in the first half. And then he got his legs going and really started to equalize that game. Heck, they were trying to tie it up right before half. And on that play is when he was injured.
Yep.
And they're not very good without him. They're not great with him, but he fights like a son of a gun. And they need him back because in some ways, even though he makes mistakes, although he's flawed, he fights like hell. And that's exactly what the Mountaineers need.
Absolutely. They do need that. They do need that. They need him. Just for a spiritual leader, if nothing else, just because you got a fighter on your hands. At number 7, Texas Tech. Now, Texas Tech fans, Fitz, had come after us for the last several weeks telling us we didn't give you any respect. We were overlooking the Red Raiders. What do they got to do to get to the top of this? They should be ahead of Iowa State, BYU, Kansas State. What are you talking about? And then you played Baylor, and you allowed Baylor to score 59 points on you at home. I mean, what am I supposed to do with that? I mean, the exact opposite of going out and earning your respect is letting Baylor score 59 points on you at home. I had somebody in the comments that actually said that. He said this, Fitz, was, well, I know the defense looked bad, but the special teams was worse. I'm like, hold on a second. Wait a minute. Unless the special teams were responsible for giving up 520 yards of offense to the opposing team and 59 points, what do you – well, I mean, look, I get it, short field, whatever. But your defense does have an opportunity to stop them. Like, they don't have to allow them to score because it's short field. They don't have to allow them to get just continuous yardage. This defense that we thought was getting better, Fitz. We thought it was getting better. It reared its ugly head again. And they got a big one this week against TCU. This is a big game, man, because their season could keep going on the trajectory of, you know what, let's just brush this aside and let's continue going upwards, or we're going to go back. Our defense is going to be pathetic for the rest of the season, and we're going to go the opposite direction. Huge game this week.
Yeah. Look, Tech. I wish I'm looking the music here. I don't have sad trombone loaded up. But I can't figure you out. I can't figure this conference out. And Tech and Baylor, that whole game might be the epitome of the Big 12 right now. Let's just throw it a deck of cards on the floor and call it shuffled. It's a mess.
Yeah.
What a mess.
It is. It is a mess. At number 6, I got Arizona State. Look, and Tech fans are going to be mad because they beat Arizona State. Arizona State looks better than you right now. You know that. Mm-hmm. And again, you just gave up 59 points. I'm not going to unsee that. Can't unsee that. Don't want to unsee that. But Arizona State fought and had their opportunities to try to win this game, except they have a horrible kicker. I mean, let's just call it what it is. Can't make those kinds of kicks to give yourself an opportunity to go score a touchdown to get back in the game. That's troubling. Mm-hmm. Their quarterback was out, and they still fought, which is why I have them at 6, Fitz, because first of all, people that are giving Kenny Dillingham the blues about what he said, I think he's right. I think he's 100% right. I don't care. There's nothing wrong with criticizing a quarterback when he plays bad, a running back, a defense. When somebody plays bad, you can say that. Well, a kicker, he didn't mention anybody by name, but are we saying that the kicking isn't atrocious? And even you could say Yes, Kenny Dillingham is responsible for the kicker on his football team. He's got to make changes. Well, did he know he was this bad that he couldn't make those kinds of field goals? Because I'm assuming if he did, or if he did know that, he wouldn't have run him out there. That's all I'm saying. And if that's the best they've got, then I don't know. Maybe not right after the game to have that blowout. Maybe that's the problem. You want to have the tryouts, you can have it, but you don't need to just announce it right after the game. He's emotional. He's young. I get it, but he isn't wrong, Fitz. Not wrong at all. Not in my opinion.
No. For any guy who's ever been married, you can be right, but you don't want to say it.
Yeah.
Because there's a price to pay. And he's paying his price. He is a young coach. He'll learn these lessons. He's a heck of a coach. They're going to be okay. Get that quarterback back and get back in sync, and they're going to start beating people again. This has been an incredible season. Don't let yourselves be distracted by something like this.
Yeah, can't let yourself get distracted. And also the loss, because sometimes, look, their schedule down the stretch is tough.
Yep.
But so they can't allow this to derail them from what is going on. That was a good football game on Saturday for anybody that didn't watch it against Cincinnati. That was a good game.
Yep,
at number 5, I got Cincinnati. Cincinnati deserves this.
Look,
Bearcat fan, you never thought that you'd see the day that I would say you're the 5th best team in this conference, did you? You never thought you'd see the day, but dag nabbit, it's the truth. I mean, that was a good football game, like I just mentioned, that you played against Arizona State. They ran the football well. They stopped the run. Scadaboo didn't have 100 yards. I understand that their quarterback is out, but you know what? Everybody deals with injuries, man. It is what it is. You still got to go out there and compete. And Cincinnati won a big game. It was at home. I don't think, and I'll say this now before we reveal anybody else, there is not a soul on earth, Fitz, not one soul, that at the end of October, the game between Colorado and Cincinnati was going to be a huge player in who can win the Big 12 conference. I don't care who you are. Nobody thought that. Well, here we are, Fitz. And Cincinnati, good for them. I'm glad that they're back because, again, I don't want to say Luke Fickell left them out in the cold, but he just took a different job. It happens. But they've bounced back. And here they are. Tough schedule coming up down the stretch. Got to keep playing, but they figured some things out.
Let's put this into context. I think most of us recognize who the top 4 in this conference is right now. Maybe the order of those 4 change, but there's a top 4 with way everyone's playing. And Cincinnati's the best of the rest, and they clearly are. So really, it's kind of a top 5. We all probably agree Cincinnati belongs up there. They've earned it on the field. They're playing good football. They're going to be troublesome for teams down the stretch. They still got plenty they can prove, but again, tough schedule.
Yeah, and the thing that Cincinnati fans are probably just gritting their teeth about right this second is in the fourth quarter, they were ahead of Pitt 27-3 and gave that football game away. So not only are you talking about that, you're talking about college football playoff possibilities just for the – now, don't get me wrong, they can win the conference and get there, but you're talking about a ranked football team if you don't give that game away. I mean, I have no doubt about that. We're talking about a ranked football team, and people are talking about you. More people are talking about you. So, but huge game. Look, you're not going to get any more eyeballs than what you need than what's happening, what's going to happen on Saturday night against Colorado. It's just the way it is right now. Let's reveal these Fits. Only one that is the same as Cincinnati at 5. Tech at 6, Arizona State at 7. You could flip-flop the 2. I get it because Tech beat them, but I just also saw somebody score 59 points on Tech. They got Baylor at 8. I'm not mad at that. TCU at 9. So close. This one's a lot closer.
It is.
Lot closer.
And it's interesting that they're not that different, but they are different.
Correct.
It's just kind of like they fell into place differently, but it just reflects some different attitudes or opinions out there. And I'm seeing all my typos now. Please take that down. Please remove that. We're
all good.
Okay.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's in this conference. If you look at the bottom, it's not very good. It just it's so competitive that they're beating the snot out of each other. But I think the national perception, being the Big 12 isn't good, is rooted in the fact that Arizona, Utah, and Oklahoma State were all supposed to be good. They were all supposed to be maybe top 5, top 6 players, and Kansas. Yep. And now where are they? And they mistake that for being bad instead of just having this conference be ultra competitive, and some other teams have emerged and are playing pretty good football.
And I think you're exactly right. It's just every conference has bad teams. People were just wrong. We were all just wrong on who the bad teams were going to be. Doesn't mean that it's a bad conference. It just means the other teams are better than what we thought, and other teams are worse than what we thought. It happens. Yeah. I'd be willing to say there's not a person, again, I use this reference a lot, person on earth that thought that Vandy would be where they are sitting in the rankings of the SEC currently right now after beating Alabama. I'm just going to say that. And Vandy being ranked. I'm going to say there's not a lot of people out there that would have thought that, but here they sit, but yet nobody's saying that the SEC is not any good.
A little perspective here. Oklahoma State stinks, and they have an SEC win over Arkansas.
They sure do.
You might question Arizona State, but they have an SEC win over Mississippi State, who granted is a very good, but that doesn't fit the narrative of what we're told about the SEC, that
correct.
Those teams are better than any teams in the Big 12. That's not even close to true.
No.
There's just not that big a separation between the conferences anymore. And again, I've made this point. If the conferences are so out of whack, how come Pac-12 and Big 12 teams have moved into new conferences and are competing at the highest level? Because they weren't clearly the best teams in their conference before. So I don't quite understand how the math works here. But ESPN's going to ESPN. They're going to trash talk everyone over in favor of the ESPN's own SEC, and we got to live with it and fight through it. And there'll be an opportunity at the end of the season for the Big 12 to prove something called the college football playoff.
Absolutely. Can't wait for it to happen either. So at number 4, I got Colorado. Look, Colorado's a good football team. They didn't do this by the typical Colorado way either, Fitz, throwing for a ton of yards. And then no, this was a defensive football game. They just physically dominated Arizona. They had 7 sacks. Who would have thought the Colorado team would have 7 sacks? They did. Arizona couldn't run the football. Colorado outrushed them. Again, who would have thought that this Colorado team's outrushing somebody? Shedeur Sanders didn't have a spectacular game. Travis Hunter, what did he play? Maybe a half. They did this with defense. They just did this with defense. Colorado's a good football team. And if you're saying that they're not, or you still want to be skeptical, that's fine, but you're just not paying enough attention, or you just hate what Colorado is right now. But they're 4th in this conference, trying to move up. They're a good football team, Fitz.
Yeah, they are. That Nebraska loss is almost devastating to their postseason hopes. But I pitched this on one of our podcasts yesterday, that a way that the Big 12 might get in an extra team in the playoff is if Colorado runs the table, does not play in the Big 12 championship, gets themselves up into the rankings, because I think if they keep winning over the next 5 games, they're going to surge into the rankings. People can now recognize they're playing pretty damn good football.
Yeah.
And if they're at 10-2 and outside the playoff, when you add in the storylines, if they get their ranking high enough and you add in the amazing television ratings Colorado's getting, all of a sudden that playoff committee might go, hey, how about Colorado as an at-large team? Because they fit the profile of what the greedy ESPN folks want from this playoff. They just want the best TV draws that have good records. That's what they're after. They'll forgive Notre Dame for losing to Northern Illinois. So you better be able to forgive Colorado for losing to Nebraska.
You would think.
Yep.
You would think. I like I said, what Colorado's turning into, they got to keep playing football, but it sounds like that they're starting to believe a little bit. They're starting to play better. And you might say, well, the week before they got run over by Kansas State. They did. Kansas State's pretty good too. Yep. Last time I checked, and that game was a 4-point football game. It wasn't some blowout. No. So it just is what it is. Colorado's a good football team. At number 3, I still have Kansas State here. Workman-like win against West Virginia on Saturday. On the road, they were a little weary. It seemed like they'll be better, I think, this weekend after they come home. A little weary of the travel that they have. That makes a difference. You go to one side of the country, go to Colorado, then you go all the way east to go to West Virginia after getting back at 4:30 in the morning or something like that. It just makes a difference.
Yeah.
It makes a difference. But
Kansas
being at
State,
home will also make a difference. But Kansas State, they continue to get better.
Yeah,
they're starting to get better.
They do. They played 3 out of their last 4 on the road, all at night, 2 Big 12 after darks. It's been a brutal schedule in terms of their sleep clock and all those things that can get out of whack. But the good news is they've got 4 out of their next 5 weeks at home. One's a bye week, but they're not traveling. And the road trip is next week to Houston. They're in a much more manageable portion of their schedule, but they can't take the eye off the task at hand. Kansas is rolling in. We know they're better than their record reflects. It's going to be a fun game on Saturday night.
Yeah, it will. Yeah, absolutely will. Looking forward to seeing it. Because I'll say this, Kansas think they can beat Kansas State. They absolutely believe they can because they've got enough talent to be able to do that. So should be a really good football game. At number 2, little mix-up this week, Fitz. I did it. People have been mad at me for not doing it previously, but this week I did it. I got Iowa State. Iowa State at 2.
You keep talking there, Big B. I'll be right back.
Okay. Yeah, I got Iowa State at 2. Look, I'll be the first person to just basically say that Iowa State or BYU has the best win because they beat Kansas State. That's a better win than winning on the road at Iowa. It is. We've seen what Iowa kind of is right now. So that's a better win than anything that Iowa State. Doesn't mean Iowa State's not a good football team, but I got Iowa State at 2. Both of them didn't look great this weekend, but they both found ways to win. Both of them at the end of the game, which is crazy. Both of them, it was the same exact score, 38-35, and had to find ways to win. Iowa State gave up 1 million rushing yards to Central Florida. BYU gave up a ton of rushing yards to Oklahoma State. Ollie Gordon looked like Ollie Gordon again. He ended up getting banged up in that football game because I thought there was an opportunity for Oklahoma State to give him the ball even more. But he got banged up in that football game. And they were moving the football against BYU. But I made the switch this week, Fitz. I got BYU at 1, and I got Iowa State at 2. And to me, they've always been interchangeable. They really have. But this week, I just said, okay, let's sit down and look at it. BYU has the best win of any win out there. I'm going to move them up to the number 1 spot.
I don't disagree, but I'm a little surprised you did it. So surprised that I didn't change the graphic until just now.
Well, doesn't
I had
matter.
it wrong.
Doesn't matter. Nobody knew that. You didn't even have to say that. Nobody would have known.
I'm an open book, man. I screwed up the graphic and I had to fix it.
Yeah, I like Iowa State. I still like Iowa State a lot. I still like BYU, but again, that's my logic. If anybody wants to question it, feel free to jump in the comments and do so. But you can't tell me that BYU doesn't have the best win up between the two because they absolutely do. Even though the game was at home, and I know you beat Iowa on the road, look what Iowa is versus what Kansas State is. I don't think there's any comparison. And then I'll go even a step further. Beating SMU on the road is a better win than Iowa State beating Iowa at Iowa. I'll go that far as well because I think SMU is a better football team than Iowa is. So that's why I have BYU at number 1 and Iowa State at 2, Fitz, for no other reasons.
No, I agree. I think BYU's resume is better. I'm still not 100% sold on Iowa State. They're good, and I thought they'd be good. Last week was a little troubling, and we'll see how things shake out. It's going to get very interesting down the home stretch with these programs. BYU's got a pretty cushy schedule going forward, and I would say it's got some challenges, including ending with Kansas State. So I think these are clearly the top 2 teams, but I'm telling you, you're not a bad conference if Kansas State and Colorado, the way both of their playing, are your 3rd and 4th best teams.
Correct.
That means you're a pretty good conference.
Absolutely. Let's look at the the final here. Oh, the publishers. What are you doing? What are you doing? No, I just had to make that switch. I had to make that switch. Look, it's to me, again, merit has to mean something. It has to mean something. And Iowa State just doesn't have the same type of wins. It doesn't mean that I'm one of those guys that says, oh, well, Iowa State hasn't played anybody. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying if you match up the resumes, BYU's win at SMU is a better win than Iowa State's win at Iowa, in my opinion. BYU's win against Kansas State, even though it was at home, is a better win than anything that Iowa State has done this year. Both of those. And so at some point, that has to matter, in my opinion. At some point, you have to just say their resume is better. I've got them at 1. I'm doing that now. So
it's disappointing that BYU and Colorado don't play, because
yeah,
if they played in the final week of the season, we'd basically have a playoff within the Big 12, because Kansas State and Iowa State end with each other, and BYU and Colorado don't play. That's sad. I mean, I wish they did, because that would be a great game. That'd be a game against two entirely different football teams, entirely different approaches. And that would be kind of fun to watch. These are 4 good football teams, Big B. They really are. They're worthy, they're competitive, and they defy the logic of the national media that all the best football is in 2 conferences. I think if you put 2, if not 3 of these teams in the playoff, there'll be trouble for everyone. And it's about matchups, of course, once you get there. But whomever gets into the playoff, and I sense it might be more than 1 at this point, unless there's a bunch of upsets that dampen down these records. The Big 12's got a great shot to get a second team in, because let's just say we talked about this on a podcast yesterday, that BYU's 12-0 going to the Big 12 championship. Kansas State beats Iowa State, and they're both 11-1. Kansas State beats BYU. Look, it was a Kansas State podcast. Roll with me here. And that leaves you with BYU at 12-1 and Iowa State at 11-1. Is the committee really going to leave out both? Are they going to leave out one of them? I find it hard to believe. So I want to see that pressure.
Yeah, I mean, I would think it would be hard for the committee to do that, but Fitz, we just saw him leave out a 13-0 conference champion of at the time Power 4 conference, and they said because their quarterback got hurt, so we don't want them in this, even though they were undefeated and won a conference title. So we've seen it happen. We've seen it happen, and at any expense, because again, we went down the whole road of Army, Navy. They're looking for any reason to put them in. But both of those teams play Notre Dame. And I'll just tell you right now, Army and Navy go undefeated. That means both of them have beat Notre Dame, and then they play each other. There is a 0 possibility that Army and Navy both won't be in the college football playoff. 0 possibility that won't happen, which will eat up spots that the Big 12 will have. That's all I'm saying. And again, I'm not even sure that Notre Dame's that good of a football team, but people think they are. So it is. It is what it is. But I do like your assessment of the Big 12. 2 opportunities, at least 2 teams should be able to get in. I didn't think that 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, I thought there's no way. Now that things have played out a little bit, yeah, I think there's a strong possibility that at least 2 teams get into this thing. And if the scenario that you just laid out were to actually happen, I mean, maybe, just maybe, they're going to find any kind of way to put Alabama in. You know that. Even if they lose another game, which they probably will, they'll look for any reason to get them in. So we'll see. But I think the Big 12 Conference is representing itself pretty well right now and setting up for a crazy finish. So appreciate everybody being in here, man. Thank you guys again, as always. Again, continue to like, follow, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know when the Big 12 Insiders content comes out. Tomorrow, we might be a little bit later getting it out to you just because of interviews and the basketball stuff is coming out tomorrow, media day. So it might take us a little bit to get all that stuff put together, but we will have spotlight games for you and game day on Thursday, all the stuff the rest of the week. So appreciate you guys. Thank you. And we will talk to you soon.
Thank you for watching the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. This has been a Spirit Street production.